series became a 3-game series, but no complaints here because it was a very successful 3-game series for the Mets down in Atlanta as they take 2 of 3 from the Braves, including a smackdown in Game 3 to wrap it up. Welcome to the Queen's Connection, Episode 3, a production of Patton Sports Creative. I am your host, Andrew Patton, and we are joined yet again by the co-host. It was made official on Twitter, so if it's on Twitter, it must be true. Mr. Corné Hogeveen joined us from the Netherlands, where it is the afternoon over there. So I will wish you a good afternoon, sir. And are you still riding the high from the series win over the Braves?
What a series! I mean, last week we were 0-5, and now all of a sudden we are in a completely different mindset, different world. Seems a weekend do a lot in baseball, and this week has definitely showed that it was a great series. Beating Atlanta at their home ballpark is sweet.
Yes, we could call it a house of horrors for the Mets, definitely from last season. I guess we could go back to the final series of that 2022 season with the Mets and Braves, where the Mets got swept. It's been a tough place to play for the Mets. So going in there, taking 2 of 3, making a bit of a statement, I would say, is very big, especially like you said, after a very rough 0-5 start. The Mets are playing very well at the moment. They had a 4-2 road trip, so you can't complain about that. So no, two out of 3 in Cincinnati, 2 out of 3 in Atlanta. As we talked about, 2 very good teams. Obviously, we know how good the Braves can be, and we saw the talent that Cincinnati has, who is going to be fighting, I think, for that top spot in the NL Central. So a good road trip for the Mets as they are now coming back home to face the red hot Kansas City Royals. But let's talk about this Brave series, and let's go back to Game 1, because Game 1, it was certainly an interesting game to say the least. Julio Teheran makes his Mets debut, and smooth sailing those first 2 innings, and then all of a sudden things kind of go awry in that 3rd inning. The Braves get 4 runs. Marcell Ozuna with a bomb. So Atlanta gets up 4-0. Teheran doesn't make it out of the 3rd inning. So the Mets are in an early hole, and you're thinking, oh boy, here we go. It's the Braves. They're smacking us around as usual. But the Mets chip away to get a run in the 4th, and then in the 5th inning, a big 3-run homer off the bat of Brandon Nimmo, and that Brandon Nimmo was not done in this game, as we'll talk about later. But the Mets fight their way back to tie the game at 4. Atlanta does get a run in the 6th, and then the Mets tie it again in the 7th inning. And DJ Stewart comes up with a big home run in this game as well. It was his first hit of the year. We'll talk about DJ Stewart later and just kind of the great series he had, but also a little bit of an odd season he's having, perhaps some people would say. So the Mets they're up good. They're up going into the 8th inning. The Braves scratch out a run to make it 8-6. And then they scratch it out a run in the 9th as well, as Jorge Lopez comes in to save it, as Diaz, Ottavino, guys are unavailable just because the bullpen's been taxed so much. So the Mets take Game 1 by a final of 8-7. We have to give credit to Drew Smith as well, who came in to pitch and got himself a little bit of a jam. He went into a camera well as well, but he fought through that. As we saw later in the day, he posted on his social media, I believe he had a nice big welt on his leg from smacking the camera. So playing hurt was Drew. But the Mets get the series opening win 8-7 over the Atlanta Braves, a comeback win for the Mets. And we were texting during this game, and you said we could do a whole episode just on this game. So let's get your thoughts on this game, Mr. Corné. What did you think about Game 1?
I think that game had everything. We were down 4-0, like you mentioned, 4-0. We knew that we didn't have our A bullpen that day, so Teheran not getting 2-3 innings was enormous. Then you're sitting watching the game and think, like you said, oh, this is gonna get ugly. And I think every Mets fan thought that at that point. And this is gonna be an ugly game. The Braves are a fantastic lineup. Charlie Morton was pitching, who a veteran pitcher who probably could handle a lead like he got, and but the Mets weren't done. I think until the final out was recorded, I had a feeling that we are not going to close it out. And the Braves, although the Mets were fought, the Braves are gonna pull it out. And I think many of us Mets fans had that feeling. We didn't have Edwin Diaz. Jorge Lopez came in, and I don't think Jorge Lopez earned that save because he got extremely lucky in that ninth. Tyrone Taylor with a tremendous catch in the ninth inning on the ball Ozuna hit, which I thought was out, but apparently it stayed in the ballpark and Tyrone Taylor run it down. The final at bat with Travis d'Arnaud hit the ball very hard in the gap. Um, so many things happened, and Reed Garrett, who had another tremendous outing, he has been so good. His off-speed pitches have been tremendous. His slider has been tremendous, starting to throw that more, and the fastball less things works for him because he has a tremendous slider. So he has been a pleasant surprise, to say the least. Um, Stewart, who didn't have a hit, gets gets a home run in his first hit. It's so many things happened in that game, and yeah, it was just a tremendous fight. We fought without our best personnel. I mean, Tehran is probably our emergency ninth starter or something like that, maybe even the 10th starter for the Mets. If you include some minor league guys, some minor league talented guys who probably would have done a better job than Julio for Tehran. So it was just a tremendous fight, a tremendous show of passion for this team. A lot of people did a lot of things good.
Yeah, I guess we gotta give Reed Garrett his flowers, like you did as well. But this is a guy, at least for me, I've always said you can always find a journeyman relief pitcher like a Reed Garrett. Don't have to waste a 40-man roster spot and all that stuff. And we saw last year, you could see the stuff was there, but he had a good outing, and then the next two were not very good. And it's like, what are we doing with this guy? Well, he's come up big twice this year when the bullpens really needed it. And then Monday night, he went two in the third, one hit, one walk, five strikeouts. That's huge for, like you said, for with Tehran, who just didn't give you any length in this game, which was unfortunate because it was a veteran pitcher. You were hoping, hey, get at least five and we'll figure out the bullpen from there. But he couldn't do that, unfortunately. So Reed Garrett saves the day yet again. So kudos to him. And Cole Sulser came up for this game too. He gave the Mets an inning. Like he allowed a run, a walk, two hits. He did have a strikeout, but at that point, any inning is very valuable that you can get out of the bullpen.
Yeah, Cole Sulser actually shouldn't have allowed a run because that was a crazy call by the third base umpire
That's a
with a
good point.
terrible,
Good point.
terrible, terrible game. DJ Stewart definitely swung when he walked, so it wasn't all positive for the or negative for the match, but that call where it was a clear fair ball and Beatty clearly made that play, and the guy I don't remember who it was. Was it Chad Fairchild
I
who
think it was
was the
Chad Fairchild.
who initially called it foul and then tried to say fair quickly, but then the damage was already done, and instead Orlando Arcia got an infield hit on a pitch later in that at bat. So Cole Sulser actually should have not allowed a hit there. And at that point, it was in that game, it was like, oh well, we came back, we tied it, and like that, we were down a run again. And I think, oh, this is that type of game where it just doesn't go our way again, like we have seen multiple times as Mets fans. But in the end, it wasn't. But that could have been a huge missed call right there by Chet Fairchild.
Definitely. And let's talk about Nimmo in this game because his two home runs were uh, game tying home runs. Obviously, the 3-run homer to tie it at four. And then he hits the solo shot to dead center off AJ Minter, a tough lefty. So Nimmo, I mean, this whole series was great at the plate. Looks like he's starting to find his stride. But just those two home runs, clutch situations for the Mets, really kind of sparked them. Um, which one was more impressive to you? Was it the one off Charlie Morton because we had heard like leading up into the game, or I think maybe Steve Gelbs had reported it, or they were talking about it in the broadcast booth. Nimmo was coming into this game saying Morton's changeup has always given him a lot of trouble, and he hits that bomb into the chop house or over the chop house, and the pitch was a changeup, or facing a tough lefty in AJ Minter, who's got some nasty stuff, and he goes dead center against a tough lefty. Which one do you think was more impressive in your mind?
For me, it's facing a tough lefty who doesn't allow a lot of home runs. You as a lefty hitter getting to him, and not in a cheap way. That ball was crushed over the center field wall. So they are both very impressive. I mean, that situation, the Mets were down 3 runs, and for that first one, one swing of the bat, he walked. I think Morton walked back-to-back hitters in front of Nemo, the 8 and 9 hitter. So obviously, as a pitcher, you don't want to do it, and especially in front of a guy like Nemo. But to make him pay at that spot is impressive. But after the Mets, got that unlucky run against to be able to face a prime Braves reliever, and the bullpen for the Braves was actually before the series they were tremendous numbers. So getting to AJ Minter for me was a very impressive home run to dead center. So I will pick the second one.
And then we'll also coming up with a big RBI single in the eighth inning, right after DJ Stewart had given the Mets the lead with his home run. And we'll talk about that DJ Stewart home run. Just looking at the win probability thing, the previous batter Marte had struck out, so there's 2 outs now, and the Mets win probability was at a little below 50%. And DJ Stewart rockets that ball to center field, and the Mets win probability jumps up 80 to 85%. So just a super clutch home run by DJ Stewart. And this was a guy we had talked about, going into the Red series, just saying, hey, Tyrone Taylor, well, what he's showing, maybe it's the guy who should be getting more at bats against right-handers. Maybe he should be a fixture in the lineup. But DJ Stewart, obviously in this series, he had another home run. We'll talk about that finale later. But how much of a confidence boost? Obviously for DJ Stewart, it's a big confidence boost. But for you as a fan to see DJ Stewart, who had been struggling mightily at the plate, he gets some walks, but when you really needed a hit, he couldn't come through. It seemed like he was striking out. How much of a confidence boost do you think it provided for the fans to see DJ Stewart rocket that ball out to dead center?
That's a great question. I mean, it's still one hit. It was a clutch hit, but I think every baseball player who plays in a major league will get a good moment, most likely. So after that, I wasn't necessarily uh, that more confident. It didn't at that point. It didn't change my view about what we talked about in the podcast last week. And don't forget that Tyrone Taylor did a terrific job in the game too, coming off the bench. It's not like Tyrone Taylor. I think every game he plays, he does something to help this ball club win, and I think that's very valuable. And DJ Stewart hadn't done that until the Monday hit. So at that point, I was extremely happy, but it didn't necessarily change my view. After the second home run, which we talk about later, it does, and I think it's gonna be. I think that after we talk about the series, it might be a good question if who will be off the roster if JD Martinez comes back. But that's maybe a question for later.
Yeah. Well, the Mets take the opening game in a thrilling way, 8-7 over the Braves. So let's jump to game two of this series where Ronaldo Lopez against Adrian Hauser was the pitching matchup. And it just wasn't Adrian Hauser's day. At one point, he allowed 6 straight hits. The Braves got up 6-0 in this game. after 6 innings. Uh, to Hauser's credit, it looked like, man, if he'd be lucky to get out of the fourth inning, because that fourth inning, or the third inning, I should say, was the rough one. But he gave the Mets 5 innings when they really needed it because the bullpen was used heavily the day before. Your long men and Reed Garrett was not available in that game, so any length that Hauser could give the Mets was huge. So he would end up going 8 hits, 5 runs, all earned, 2 walks, and a strikeout. So just not Hauser's day, but we know he can be a very good pitcher, as we saw before against the Tigers. So the Mets call up an arm to give them some length in that bullpen, and I always screw up this guy's first name. I don't know why it gives me trouble so much, but it does. Daniil Nunez. I think I got it right this time. He came up, made his major league debut. That'll be a theme in this series as well. He gave the Mets 2 solid innings out of the bullpen, struck out 3 batters, so a good outing for him. And he really showed that he's got some good stuff. I think he was topping out at about 97, I think, on the gun. So has his life on his fastball. So maybe that's another potential arm that's going to be an impact for the Mets at some point when guys potentially go down if that happens.
He's on the 40-man roster now, so that means that he's probably one of the first. I think if Reed Garrett continues his success, he's not going anywhere. So if the Mets need an arm, he is on the 40-man roster. He has options, obviously, just after his major league debut. So there's a good chance we see. I think it's Daniel Nunez, but I'm not 100% sure. So I'm going to call him Daniel Nunez. Sorry, Daniel, if that's wrong. But he looked tremendous. Another outing where he was a little bit unlucky. I think he allowed a bloop hit and another soft hit in that outing, but he allowed just 1 run when he had the bases loaded against the middle of the order. So that's impressive against that ball club. Fastball slider was a very good combo for him. And one thing I noticed that he threw 31 pitches and 25 for strikes, and that for your MLB debut facing the Atlanta Braves in their ballpark is pretty darn impressive. Yeah, he showed impressive stuff. I mean, still, if you look at the overall numbers, 1 run, 3 hits in 2 innings, you not necessarily think anything of it. But if you looked at his outing, it was very impressive, and he will definitely be up with the Mets at some point again. Kudos to him. Great outing.
Very, very much so. I think if memory serves me correctly, he had the bases loaded, with no outs or 1 out, something like that. And to get out of that with just the 1 run is very, very impressive. So kudos to him. And like I said, I'm sure we'll be seeing Nunez down the line. But the Braves are up 6-0. We're heading to the top of the 8th inning, and we're just thinking this game is probably over. Just get ready for Wednesday night, which Wednesday night never happened because of the rain yet again. But Pete Alonso comes up, smacks a 3-run homer, puts the Mets right back in the game, and you're like, all right, well, let's see. They got some fight in them. Let's see what they can do. Cole Sulser gives him a big outing in the 8th just to shut the door for the Braves. He pitched an inning, zeros across the board, had a strikeout in that inning, which turned out to be pretty huge just to keep the Braves at bay. So we go to the 9th inning. Omar Narvaez gets an RBI double. His Harrison Bader scores. Marte then grounds out as Narvaez scores. So we're 6-5 now. And Lindor comes up, gets a bloop hit. So we get the go-ahead run at the plate and Pete Alonso. And unfortunately, Pete struck out. But it was a good pitch there by Raisel Iglesias, as we know, is a very good closer. So the Mets do fall to the Braves 6-5. But we were talking after the game, texting, and we said that's a very scrappy team, I think is the way to put it. They were getting their faces just smashed by the Braves. It just looked like, oh, the Braves are going to run away with this game, kind of like we thought the night before. But the Mets fought back, and they got the go-ahead run at the plate, and the guy you want who can give you the lead with one swing. So the Mets do lose this game, but I guess we could call it a moral victory, maybe, just because this is a team last year we saw that was in this situation. it seemed like they just kind of maybe curled up a little bit and were just taking the beating. But they fought back this time to get the go ahead run at the plate. So, just your overall takeaways from game two of this series.
If your starter just doesn't have it, Adrian Hauser didn't have his sinker, got hit extremely hard early in the count on that sinker. Um, Down 6-0 in the eighth, and you get it that close against, or who was it? Matzek and Iglesias, right? I mean, those guys are darn good relievers, and the Mets battled them. It was a loss, but I think this is a far different loss than um, you can't win them all. And for me, this was a loss that I thought, oh well, it's not that I take a loss, but you know that you are going to lose some games, and this could be a game where you just lost 6-0, 7-0. I think, oh well, on to the next game. But the Mets tried, they battled, and that's to me is a very positive sign. Just not laying there and get your ass kicked, but try to get the best out of it. And the boot said a lot of times that the energy from the Mets dugout, even down 6-0, was good. And I think that's what we saw in 2022. So that's just a major plus. Another kudos to this team. One thing about the game that even with Narvaez having a good offensive year, man on the defense, he has been horrendous. That's just one note that I wanted to add to that game.
Yeah, we'll talk about the catching defense because it's been a bit of an issue all year. But we go into Wednesday night, and that game gets rained out. So the starters for Wednesday get pushed back to Thursday afternoon. That's Jose Quintana for the Mets and former Mets farmhand Alan Winnays. Uh, I can't say that guy's name either. Whatever. But so we go into this game, and we were both talking a little surprised because Max Fried, if fall went as planned weather-wise, was going to pitch this game. But the rain said otherwise, so we thought maybe the Braves would throw Fried out there just because Fried's a lefty. Mets traditionally struggle against left-handed pitching, and Fried seems like he's always going to handle the Mets pretty well. But they don't. They go with the spot start in the Spencer Strider spot in the rotation. And what turned out to be a pretty poor decision by Brian Snitker and the Braves because the Mets jump out to a 1-0 lead thanks to Brett Beatty, who got down 0-2, swung over two changeups, and he finally got a fastball up, went the other way. So the Mets got out to a 1-0 lead. Second inning, the Mets get a double from Brandon Nimmo, driving the run. So they're up 2-0. They get another run, so 3-0. The Mets are just looking solid at the plate that day. And then in the third, DJ Stewart hits a home run, his second of the season, and that put the Mets up 7-0. And then we're going to the fourth inning here, and the Mets are up 7-0. I was telling you, I feel pretty good, but I'm not getting cocky because I know the team we're playing, the Braves, who had just come back from a 6-0 deficit against Diamondbacks the series before. And the Braves they started to chip away in that fifth inning. They got 3 runs, make it a 7-3 game. But the Mets answered in the seventh inning where they tack on 3 runs to get 2 in the eighth, and that pretty much put the game away so much that Luis Guillorme, former Met, now Atlanta Brave, came in to pitch the ninth inning and allowed a grand slam to Tyrone Taylor. So the Mets win this game 16-4, 16 runs, 16 hits in this game. Always good to see. The Braves did not play a great defensive game as well. So then the Mets took advantage of those opportunities that the Braves gave them. Jose Quintana, he went 5 1/3 this game, 3 runs, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts, 5 hits. I would say your typical Quintana start that he's given these first 3 games. Drew Smith gave them length out of the bullpen, going more than an inning. He went an inning and 2/3 with 2 strikeouts. Then perhaps the best story of the game from a baseball human interest standpoint, Tyler J made his major league debut, pitched 2 innings, did allow a run, did have a walk and a strikeout, 5 hits, but he saved the bullpen, gave them two innings that they needed. just so you don't have to use your big guys in a blowout game. Ottavino, Diaz, Rayleigh, etc. Um, so Tyler J gets his major league debut in a former top 10 pick in the 2015 draft, and struggled finding consistency in the minor leagues. He was a reliever. Twins tried to make him a starter, just didn't work out, and went to independent ball. Also had some health issues to overcome, which he did, and he gets up here with the Mets, and gets his debut in. Very good story, but also very good day as the bats, as we mentioned, with the 16 runs and 16 hits. Brandon Nimmo had 2 RBIs in this game. McNeil with 3 RBIs, Stewart 2 RBIs, Alvarez 2 RBIs. A lot of guys with multi RBI games. Obviously Taylor with the 4 because he hit the grand slam. So we talk about trying to make a statement, and the Mets I think definitely made a statement with this win and this series. So your game 3 takeaways from this game.
The offense just hit Winans very hard, and we talked about this when texting that Winans had a pretty good change. That was his main pitch, his bread and butter. But the fastball, the slider, he wasn't able to get over. And the fastball is just not that special. So at some point, if he I said in the last podcast about Manaya that he didn't have a feel for his changeup and he was able to throw his other pitches for strikes and was able to still throw 5 scoreless innings. We didn't see that with Winans. He threw the changeup awfully long, very much, and in the beginning we saw some swing and misses on that changeup, but in the end we saw hitters adjusting, and major league hitters adjust to the same pitch, and the Mets made him pay. 6 runs, yes, the first 3 I think were partly because of bad defense. Arcia made an error. That ball that Nemo hit, that Harris misplayed in center field. I think Michael A. Harris. It was hit hard, but Michael A. Harris should have made that play. I think he would have said that he should have made that play. But overall, still, it's good to see that the Mets made the Braves pay for their mistakes early on, and then made Winans pay for not having his best stuff and actually became mostly a change-up pitcher. So that was great to see. And again, another day where the Mets didn't stop against the Braves bullpen. So that was great to see. Yeah, I mean, winning a game 16-4 is always good. One thing that did bother me a little bit, that was Luis Guillorme. I know you probably have a different view on this than I have, but getting his major league debut his Braves debut off the mound was that made me a little bit sad, but nonetheless, that was probably the worst thing I saw of this game.
Well, I was just happy my man Tyrone Taylor was able to tee off on and get that grand slam off Guillorme. You know, it counts in the stat books. You go look at Tyrone Taylor's stats. That 1 home run for the year, you know, it counts. So the Mets take 2 of 3 from the Braves. They are now 5-7. They are tied for third in the National League East, as the Nationals are also 5-7, but 2.5 back of the Braves if you want to start looking at the standings early. But no, a team that was 0-5 at one point, now 5-7, so they're 5-2 in their last 7 games. What's been the biggest difference that you've seen from those first 2? Obviously, you looked at the offense. The offense is now putting good at bats together and whatnot. But was there anything special or different that you saw in this road trip that you said, okay, I think these guys or this team, they kind of got back on track, or they're where they're supposed to be?
They showed fight, and obviously, if you lose 5 in a row, people tend to say that they lack passion. Well, that's not the case, but the at bats in clutch situations were a lot better. Um, we have numerous examples in those games where match hitters get the job done, and when we started 0-5, we not necessarily got the job done. So that's great to see. We also see um, when we were 0-5, we had a lot of hitters who you knew wouldn't have major slumps to start the year, get going. Pete had a good series. Well, he had a bad series in Cincinnati, but a good series in Atlanta. Nimmo obviously is doing better. McNeil with a good series in Atlanta. I think those three guys were bound to break out, and they did. Lindor's on the left side, betting left, is staying a little bit behind, but I'm not necessarily worried about that because that's the case every single year. So that's great. And the other guys who were probably your main question marks did their thing. Martinez still had a good series, still is having a solid year. Brett Beatty, we talked about him in all three podcasts now. Still, he kept it up. So this lineup is looking pretty good, even without JD Martinez. But if you add JD Martinez, if you have a lineup with Nimmo, Marte, Lindor, Pete, JD, Beatty, Alvarez, that's a pretty great 1 through 7 off the top of my head right there. So the offense was a little bit of a concern after going on at 5, but right now I don't think there's a reason for a lot of concern. So that's terrific to see. Another thing that I noticed, which besides maybe Tehran, every bullpen arm that comes up for the match does well. It's not the depth is really out there, and the depth we lost some depth pieces with Johan Ramirez and Michael Tonking now, but that new Nunez comes in, does well. Cole Sulzer comes in, does well. We have still have Nate Lavender, Grant Hardwick in Eric Orsi in the minor leagues. So this team has depth, and this team had more depth than I probably acknowledged from the start. This is what David Stearns always does, but the pitching lab is also starting to show, and guys who are coming up are doing well. It's not like you bring up a guy and he gets tattooed. You're actually bringing up guys who do extremely well. So that's great to see.
Yeah, what's some series notables? I jotted down. Nimmo in this series was 7 for 14, 2 home runs, 7 RBIs. DJ Stewart obviously had the 2 home runs in this series. He also got on base via the walk a couple times. And McNeil 4 for 9 with 3 RBIs. He also walked 4 times in this series. And Jeff's always been having that reputation of an aggressive hitter. Swing first pitch, whatever. So to get 4 walks in this series by McNeil, it's very impressive, and maybe it was just 4 pitches where he was not even tempted. But the 4 walks stood out to me for a guy like Jeff McNeil. So let's just talk about DJ real quick. Guy we've been hard on, I think, to start the season because he was just off to a bad start. But this series really kind of turned things around, showed his power, showed that he can get on base. And you look at his stat line, it's like super weird. He's got a 105 batting average right now, but a 370 on base. His OPS is 791 at the moment with the 2 home runs and the 4 RBIs. So we alluded to this earlier. It makes the conversation whenever JD Martinez is ready to come up. If DJ keeps this up, it's going to make it interesting as who's going to be the roster casualty, because we naturally assumed it would be DJ Stewart, because he wasn't performing, and that's a spot where JD Martinez is going to play. He's going to be the designated hitter. I'd say 9 times out of 10 if they play the field. I don't know what they're thinking. But if DJ is going to provide power from the left side off the bench, you got to find a place to keep him, I would think. So maybe that makes a guy like Zach Short the odd man out. But we know Zach Short is basically the right-handed version of Joey Wendell. So then you become very left-handed, I'd say, on the bench, figuring Narvaez, Wendell, and DJ Stewart. Your only right-handed bat is Tyrone Taylor. So it makes it a very interesting decision if DJ forces the Mets' hand almost.
It is. It's already a very interesting decision. Martinez isn't up probably for maybe a couple of weeks, I would say. So they have a little bit of time to think about it, and the Mets have a little bit of a shot to see if DJ Stewart continues this on base slash power thing that he has going on. But I mean, we were harsh on DJ Stewart because before the half a season with the Mets he wasn't necessarily been a very successful major league hitter. So without a glove, so it was logical that we thought that DJ Stewart would be the odd man out. But yeah, if he can provide power off the bench, I mean, late in the game, right-hander on the mound, and Harrison Bader at the plate, you can bring in DJ Stewart, and he will get some big at bats late in the game. So right now, if I would make a pick, I would say it's probably DJ Stewart over Zach Short staying because I also, you know, we don't see Zach Short play a lot. So probably you could figure out with McNeil and Wendell, who can play multiple positions, you could probably figure an emergency plan out when you need an emergency plan. So I would say that DJ Stewart maybe provides a little bit more from the bench than Zach Short.
Yeah, well, DJ Stewart probably feeling the heat as JD was coming, but now JD Martinez having some back soreness. He's just going to get shut down for a little bit, so gives DJ Stewart extra time to prove that he belongs with this with the major league club. So obviously, with JD Martinez, he's down in St. Lucie, as we know. So I think that's a good segue to down on the farm. So let's take a look at the minor leagues. And we'll start with St. Lucie. They have a series with Jupiter going on. They're 1-2 in that series, as we know with minor league baseball. They're 6-game series now. So just some looking at the box score. Some obviously that doesn't tell the whole story, but Marco Vargas is 1-for-4 with an RBI in this series. Colin Houck has 2 RBIs in this series. Houck was the first round pick last year. We know Vargas came over with Ronald Hernandez in the David Robertson trade, and you were telling me, look, oh my gosh, Ronald Hernandez was doing what he usually does, and that's draw walks.
Yes, he had a 3-walk game on Tuesday. I mean, it's crazy to see that this guy who is 20 years old, by the way, coming off a season in the Miami and Mets organization where he had a 452 on base percentage, and you think, well, that's pretty good. But however, it was able in mostly rookie league, so maybe let him play in A ball. But so far this year, with 5 games, he has a 455 on base percentage, and as a 20-year-old, doesn't hasn't shown a lot of power so far this year, but having a catcher who's able to get on base on that clip, it would always be, in my opinion, pretty nice. So it's an intriguing, not maybe the best catcher in the system we have, probably behind Parada, but so far so good for Ronald Hernandez because that walk rate as a 20-year-old right now, he's a year younger than the average St. Lucie player. So it's great to see that he has such an advanced eye. So definitely one to keep an eye on. Just 20 years old, by the way, and, born in October. So sorry, a little bit longer than I thought when I read it. But born in October, so it's not like he won't be 21 until next season. So it's great to see such an advanced eye for such a young catcher.
Definitely. Anyone from St. Lucie that you also want to touch on, or you want to move up to the next level of Brooklyn?
Well, one arm that did well in was last year's 6th-rounder Jack Weniger, who had 8 Ks in 3 1/3 innings in the loss on Thursday. So that was one that I would have. That was pretty good. So that would be very good.
Gotta highlight him with it. He struck out 8 and 3 and what 2/3. He said, you know,
Three and a third.
3 1/3. So one less.
So two hitters he didn't strike out. He got. So that's
There you go.
pretty. Some nice strikeout stuff there. He showed.
Definitely. All right, let's go with the Brooklyn. They're 1-1 in a 6-game series with Asheville. They got rained out yesterday. In this series, Ryan Clifford hit his first home run of the year. He's also walked 3 times in this series. And Brandon Sproat made his professional debut. He didn't pitch last year after the Mets drafted him from Florida. He went 2 2/3. He allowed a hit, walked 5, but he also struck out 5. So you'd like to see those walks come down, but your first professional outing, maybe there's a little jitters there. And obviously, this time of the year with Brooklyn, or just in the Northeast in general, not the greatest weather. So maybe that was a little bit of a factor. But we saw it in the spring breakout game against the Nationals, the kind of stuff that Sproat has. And he showcased it here with the 5 strikeouts in less than 3 innings of action. So, we talk about Christian Scott and Dom Hamill, who we will in this podcast, Mike Vassell, Tyler Stewart, but this is the guy, college arm, so they tend to have some more mileage, which means they're probably going to get up to the big leagues maybe quicker if the development goes well. So this is a guy to keep on the radar because on this trajectory, if he pitches well in Brooklyn this year, he might get a late season promotion to Binghamton, which means he's not too far out if all goes well.
Definitely, control will be the bugaboo for Sprout, but that stuff is for real. If he's able to learn to control his pitches, I think that's not gonna happen in a season. I think that will probably be a developing story. But if he's able to do that, then that's another top rotation arm. I think that we might see if he's able to control. If he's not able to control, this could be a completely different story. But right now, if he's able to control, I think the stuff is legit. So could be another maybe 1, 2, 3 type arm in the majors. Maybe that it's way too early. I understand, but I can deny his great stuff.
Yeah, some interesting arms down there with Sproat and Calvin Ziegler. Obviously, had a really good outing his first time out. So some interesting arms to keep an eye on down on Coney Island. Let's go from Coney Island to Binghamton. They're 1-1 in a 6-game series with Erie. They got rained out yesterday as well. Not a whole lot of action, I would say, from the highly thought of prospects for Binghamton, but one guy who's off to a really good start this year is Rylan Thomas. He's an outfielder drafted 2 years ago, I believe. He's 4 for 7 in this series with an RBI, and just taking a look at his numbers last year, he played in St. Lucie, Brooklyn, and Binghamton. And at all 3 levels, he hit over 300. So that's always catches my eye. And it's not like he's hitting singles, whatever. He's driving the ball. There's some extra base hits because his slugging is well over 400 for some teams. So Rylan Thomas, we talked about him a little bit in one of our previous episodes for his great defensive work. Now he's swinging a good bat here for the Rumble Ponies. So Rylan Thomas, not saying that there's anything, he's the next coming of Mike Trout or anything like that, but if he keeps putting up numbers like this, he's going to catch the attention of those within the organization.
What is his age?
I can double check that as I look it up. Rylan Thomas. I know he was a college pick out of USC a couple years ago. So you figure maybe 23, 24, but we can get an official number here for you as we pull up the MILB page. Rylan Thomas is 23 years old, so I was pretty spot on.
That's not too bad. I mean, Double A, getting there, getting close. If he keeps on hitting, Triple A promotion is probably pretty close. Like I mentioned last week, excuse me. Great glove. So he has that in his favor. So if he's able to hit, then could be a nice piece, nice like fourth, fifth outfielder on a major league squad.
You always need a fourth, fifth outfielder. The guy had that depth. So
Exactly, and you need depth. You also need guys like we see right now in the major leagues. Guys are brought up. You think that you have Johan Ramirez and Tonking, but now your depth is Daniel Nunez, Tyler J, and Cole Sulser. So if they all, I think maybe Cole Sulser doesn't, but the other two have options. So Reed Garrett still has options. So you right now you have a completely different 40-man roster and guys who can go from AAA to the majors. So we see how important it is to have depth, and Ryland Thomas could be a depth piece in a couple of years or so.
all right, let's finish things off with Syracuse. They're 2-1 in their 6-game series with the Worcester Red Sox, and the headliner here is the combination of Dom Hamill and Christian Scott. Back-to-back outings for they were thrown out there. They went 5 innings each. They also struck out 10 batters, so 10 combined innings pitched with 20 strikeouts for some high-level arms that you're hoping to, for at least for fans, that maybe get a crack at the major leagues at some point this year. You put up outings like that, it's going to be hard to keep them down there for very long.
Well, there's still Jose Butto. I mean, people tend to forget Jose Butto, and I love Jose Butto. So right now he probably gets the first opportunity, but they are close. And if they are performing like this, Dominic Hamill did have a bad first outing, but Christian Scott mostly, I think he now has 19 strikeouts in 9 innings or something like that in AAA. I mean, that's for real. The guy could be a homegrown ace. And I know, don't put any pressure on Christian Scott, but right now how he strikes out so many batters in AAA, and AAA Syracuse isn't necessarily a pitching friendly environment. We saw that last year with guys like Butto and Lucchesi who had AAA ERAs and did well in the major leagues. So we saw it the other way around with hitters that were tremendous in AAA, had crazy high OPSs, and were hitting wise in the major league. So to see Christian Scott mowing down AAA hitters, yeah, I mean that's probably the best pitching prospect we have right now, in my opinion.
Oh, it's certainly hard to argue against that. Well, even in the spring training outings, a couple times he showed what he could do. So Christian Scott is very highly thought of by the fan base, and I'm sure he's very highly thought of by the organization by getting that invite to Major League Camp. So Christian Scott, always going to keep an eye on him when you see he's starting for Syracuse.
He's also drafted in 2021, if I'm correct, 5th-round pick. So around that time, the Mets started to really, develop their pitching lab. So he's probably one of the first pitching lab projects the Mets had, from the moment we drafted him. So that's a darn good 5th-round pick, and that's a darn good use of your pitching lab. And we see that Hamill was around that same time, that Tyler Stewart was around that same time. And all those guys weren't necessarily highly touted draft picks, but show improvement in the minors. And I think that's really something to notice for the future of this organization.
Yeah, definitely. No doubt about that. All right, so let's move back to the major leagues. The Mets have a 3-game series starting tonight with the Kansas City Royals, and the Royals are a red-hot team. They've won 7 in a row. They swept the 4-game series against the White Sox, which seems like anyone can do nowadays, but they also buried the Houston Astros. They swept them in a 3-game series, including scoring 9 runs in the first inning in yesterday's ball game. So the Royals we saw them spend some money this offseason, pick up some veteran arms, and we know they have a good young position core, obviously headlined by Bobby Witt Jr. So they're coming to town for a 3-game weekend series. Game 1 is tonight. is going to be Michael Wacha, the former Met, against Luis Severino. And tomorrow it's going to be Alec Marsh against Sean Manaea for an afternoon game at Citi Field. And then Sunday it's TBD for the Mets against Cole Reagans for the Royals. But the speculation is it could be Jose Butto, because at that point you're past the stupid 15-day option rule to start the season for pitchers. So we could see Jose Butto fill that spot for the Mets, and he pitched very well in his first outing in the doubleheader against the Tigers this year. So, like I said, red hot Royals team coming to town. Expectations for this series?
It's early this season we're playing some good teams. The Brewers are 8-3. The Tigers are 7-4. The Reds are 6-6. The Braves are 7-4, and now the Royals, who are 9-4. We aren't necessarily catching a break early on this season, so it's going to be another tough series. I hope to win two. I mean, I love Jose Butto. I think Jose Butto could keep it close, but Cole Reagans is nasty, so that's a tough arm to beat. So I'm going to say, hopefully we get the first two, and then we see what happens Sunday. But I think Sunday is going to be a difficult one against such a good lefty, because Cole Reagans is one of the better arms in the American League, in my opinion, but one of the better young arms in the game. So I hope we win the series, and if I have to guess, we win the first two, and we lose on Sunday.
Yeah. Obviously, winning series is the big thing. I mean, everyone wants to see a sweep. It looks sexy and whatnot. But really, if you take 2 out of 3, or a 3 out of 4 in a series, if you're winning series, that's the big thing. That's what's going to put you over 500 and put you into the playoffs. So if the Mets can take 2 of 3 in this series, that'd be awesome. I'm a little skeptical just because, like you said, Cole Reagans, very good. This Royals team, this offense, they're when they get on base, they steal bases, and that's been the Mets' issue with throwing runners out. So they can generate runs that way as well. If that's the case, and they're running all over Narvaez and Alvarez, and it's going to make things tough for the Mets. But if the Mets can keep swinging the bats the way they are, then they can counter that. So I'll be Mr. Optimistic. I'll take the 2 out of 3 like you. Hopefully we get make it a difference of opinion here sometime when we do these series predictions. But it's also Doc going to get his number retired this weekend. Maybe there's a little mojo there, get the team going. So I'll have the Mets taking 2 out of 3 against the Royals and maybe slowing down this red hot Kansas City team. All right, I think that's going to do it for this episode number 3 of the Queens Connection podcast, a production of Patton Sports Creative. You can always find us on Facebook and Twitter. Our Twitter handle and the link to Facebook is always in the description, whether you're listening on Spotify or on YouTube. So you can just type that in and pull us up, give us a like, a follow, subscribe, get notifications, all that good stuff to make sure you don't miss anything that we drop. Cornet, thanks for joining us as always, and enjoy this weekend series against the Kansas City Royals.
Will do. We're gonna kick their asses.
Kick their asses. Got to make them pay for 2015.
Exactly.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. This has been the Queens Connection, a production of Patton Sports Creative. Enjoy the 3-game series, and we will talk to you on Monday before the series against the Pittsburgh Pirates.